Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting on Wednesday, May 15th, 2019. Can I have roll call, please?
Peg Coniff. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kuzinski.
Here.
Bill Lynch.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Tom Peak.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Owen Zarek.
Okay, could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of May 1st?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for approval of May 1st minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Noes? Motion passes. Public speak time. If there's someone from the public who would like to address the council for something other than what's on the public hearings, this would be your opportunity. So if you come to the podium and state your name and address. Okay, we can move on then. Communications from elected officials, boards, and committees. As far as there was on the agenda for zero lot line zoning amendment, Councilor Derby will address that in his full ordinance committee report. There was additional information supplied by the mayor. Councilor Kwasinski had asked for some additional statistical information from the Collins Center relating to the report they gave associated with the reclassification of job descriptions and such in our city. So we have that available through the city clerk if anyone is interested in see that additional information he requested. Correspondence, announcements, I have none. Anyone of the councilors have any announcements or comments to make? No, moving right along here. Well,
Don't sit down, Nicole.
don't sit down, yeah. Mayor Communications.
Nice time.
I don't have, I have comments on the agenda items, but nothing separate than that.
Okay, Councilor Rist.
I want to thank you for sending, as I requested, the contract language for the mitigation of the health care. I think that was a good result. I just want to make sure, and I'm sure the pay plan employees know this, but so everybody knows, pay plan employees and retirees also will be receiving the same kinds of mitigation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and retirees are at the table. Pay plan don't have a collective bargaining agreement, and there's also been writing back and forth during the process before that with the IAC in those documents that pay plan employees,
Okay.
and they always were.
Thank you very much.
So I have a question that may be between Councilor Rist and the mayor and the city clerk. The request for the surplus auction, does that need to be sent to subcommittee? Barb, do you know, is this something,
Yeah, it should be.
it's up to subcommittee? Okay.
It has to go
Property.
to JP.
My understanding is yes, it should go to property.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was,
Okay.
Yes, it
Great.
has to. It's
Okay.
declaring surplus, so you have to do it.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions for the mayor? Thank you very much. Where are we? Standing reports already. Finance, Councilor Rist.
Do we want to move that thing to committee or wait till?
Sure, well, actually, yeah, we can do that if you want to.
I make a motion to move the surplus list of equipment valued over $500 to the property committee for review.
I'll second. Okay, motion is second to move the list of the surplus property to property for review. Additional questions or comments?
I have a question.
Councilor,
So the list that we were given, the cover sheet does not correspond to the documentation that came behind it. And I don't know if that's something you want to get when it goes to the subcommittee. There's a fire engine on here that we didn't have any paperwork for, and then there's ambulance, Fisher Sander, and a Toro Master. There was no documentation. So that may just be paperwork.
yeah, no, I think it's great that you caught on that. I would just hope the chair, but if you'll follow up on that paperwork for us.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing our attention to that, Councilor Thomas. But we still have a motion, a second, to move that to property. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes.
Mr. President, Finance Committee report. We have done 3 meetings on the budget. We have one more on May 29th of this month. We will be dealing with general government, the CPA, and revenues, as well as approving all of them in that evening, all of the different sections of the budget. I would like at this time to move that we set a public hearing for the budget for our next meeting at 6:15 in these chambers.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to set a public hearing on June 5th, 6:15 PM in these chambers relating to the fiscal year 2020 budget proposal. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
We have received a supplemental appropriation under new business. I will make this the first reading. The request is hereby made for the following appropriation. The amount requested is $85,297 to be transferred from free cash, to be transferred to police overtime pay, $16,200, police overtime investigative, $3,000, police overtime training, $5,000, police education incentive, $48,687, police special, $7,350, police uniform allowance, $5,000, for a total of $85,297. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose. Funding will be used to meet the police union contract agreement for FY 220 budget. I move that this be sent to Finance Committee for review.
Second. Motion and a second to move to finance a supplemental appropriation of $85,297 related to the police union contract for 2020. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I also move that we set a public hearing for the aforementioned appropriation for the first meeting in June, as that's our only meeting before the end of the fiscal year. I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to set a public hearing on June 5th for the supplemental appropriation of $85,297. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That concludes.
Okay. Public Safety, Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a meeting May 7th. We discussed about the parking and pedestrian safety review. We're still gonna keep talking about it because we have a few ideas, and Councilor Lynch is gonna talk to the police chief to see what we can do about a few things. Related to that, I just want to ask for extension of 90 days for the pedestrian safety review as a for an motion.
Second. Okay, a motion is second. I'm sorry, did you say 60 or 90?
90.
90-day extension for the pedestrian safety review, Main, Union, Cottage Streets. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And then for a motion, I want to request a public hearing for the June 5th at 6:15 in the chamber for the for the request to install one new jointly owned utility pole in 155 Northampton Street.
Okay, second. Okay, well, a motion is second to set a public hearing on June 5th for the installation of a new jointly owned utility pole at 155 Northampton Street. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That's complete.
Thank you. Appointments, Councilor Connor.
So we were not able to assemble a quorum this evening to talk about the one appointment that we have. So I would like to request that I present it at this time and we vote as a full council. Any objection to it?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, so we had one appointment, that was Kate Shapiro for the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. I did talk to Kate this week. She's lived in Easthampton for 10 years. She's originally from New York and really appreciates the fact that she wants to live in a community that is safe for her family, and Easthampton is that place. She's been to law school in Boston. She now works for the Department of Mental Health, helping marginalized people find their voice. She established the first court service center in Greenfield where court assistance was provided to people who are going through civil matters. As a interesting side note, if you are in a civil case, you are not necessarily afforded legal counsel like you are in a criminal case. So this service is around to help people navigate through the law process. She has worked as a low-income property manager for the courts, where she would help landlords and tenants keep the tenant in place because evictions are very expensive. She's now a case manager with the Department of Mental Health, works on housing issues. She has already started to go to the affordable housing meetings and is really excited about where that committee will go.
Wow.
Sounds very qualified.
Yeah, she's great. And as a side note, this is my little editorial comment, that I think it's really easy as we're kind of going through our day, and especially those of us on the council where we have so many meetings to go to and so many things that we're trying to get done, meeting with these folks who are on committees, who volunteer to give their time, has been unbelievably eye-opening. These people in this community are amazing, and they're smart, and they are passionate, and I am constantly impressed when I pick up the phone and talk to these folks. So all of you out there who are on committees, all of you who are thinking about volunteering for committees, please do, and thank you for those who have. You are unbelievable, and we could not do what we do without you, so thank you. So now I will make a motion to move Kate Shapiro to the Affordable and Fair Housing, to approve Kate Shapiro to the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership, term expiration December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second to approve Kate Shapiro to the Fair Affordable Housing Partnership, expiration 12/31/2021. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
So we did not have any further new business, so there will not be any other movement, nor will we have a meeting on June 5th.
Would you like an extension on the?
I would
Okay.
like one, thank you, for, let's go with 60 days.
Okay. A motion for a 60-day extension on the review of the council's confirmation for mail appointments. Is there
Second.
a second for that? Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. We can try ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. The ordinance subcommittee met with the planning board last week on the 7th. We discussed the cannabis equity applications, which we decided to continue. We have some wordsmithing to do, but one of the things that we did come to resolution with was the 0 lot lines in the Mill Industrial District. In addition to the planning board, we approved that and decided that we were going to bring it to the full council. We also got the planning board's recommendation. They approved it as well. So at this time, I'd like to set a public hearing for June 5th at 6:15 in these chambers for the request to amend 0 lot lines in the Mill Industrial District.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to set a public hearing on June 5th related to the 0 lot lines in the Mill Industrial District. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Just so you know, our next meeting will be the 21st at 5:15 downstairs. And it looks like we have some new business, so I think we can probably squeeze that in. So I'd like to move that the several proposed amendments to Chapter 3 bicycles be sent to the Ordinance Subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to move the proposed amendments to bicycles, Chapter 3, to Subcommittee Ordinance. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That concludes.
There's one more there, yeah.
Oh, is there one more? Oh, sorry, I missed it. And I would also like to move that Chapter 2, Division 6, Board of Public Works, new Section 2-66, Powers and Duties, be sent to the Ordinance Subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to move the Chapter 2, Division 6, Section 2-66, Powers and Duties to Ordinance. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Maybe we should put that in Rules and Government Relations.
That's a city ordinance, so.
No, I know.
Okay. Exactly. Does that conclude?
Yes.
Okay. We got
have a full
Proctor,
page.
Councilor Kwasinski, you think you can squeeze it in 2 or 3 minutes here?
Well, would like to be able to squeeze in an appointment, and I wonder if Councilor Peak could make a meeting on Wednesday next week,
Sure.
say 6 o'clock?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Well, we have a property meeting to consider the newly sent items to property,
Okay.
and that concludes Wednesday,
Okay.
6 o'clock.
Thank you.
The 22nd.
That concludes Rules of Government Relations, Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have not met since we were last here, so I don't really have anything to report. We're going to try and meet soon, but with the fine budget meetings and everything, it's just been busy.
Yes, yes. Okay, that concludes? Okay. So I think we're close enough. I'll take a slow motion to open public hearings.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll come back. I just thought. Okay, well, I mean, do you want to, I guess do you want to?
We just made a motion.
Okay.
Just do
We'll
the
come-
charter.
Barbara's in charge.
Do you want to remove your motion? Do you think you can do it?
Did I do that? Yes.
Yes, okay. Move motion, remove second.
I
Okay,
remove my second.
great, thank you. Charter Review Committee, Councilor Rist.
it could go very fast and say, no. We're meeting on the 23rd to continue our discussions on Article 6, Board of Public Works, and we'll begin Article 8. We're getting close to finishing. I'm very excited.
Yes.
I want to thank, since a lot of them are probably watching and in the room, and everybody here, we're doing two major issues this evening in a public hearing. Thank the committee for the hard work. We spend usually 2 hours, sometimes more, twice a month trying to get this right. And I want to make sure everybody realizes that words matter. The language in our charter, down to where the commas are, the punctuation, is vital to the interpretation of the charter for the future. So we take our time, and I thank everybody on the committee for that. So our next meeting is the 23rd, and I believe I've taken enough time, Mr. President. That concludes.
Thank
And I
you.
move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Yeah, motion second to open public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That would be me.
Yep, it'll be you. Supplemental appropriation.
The first supplemental appropriation is from the fire department. It's for $269,684. This was passed 3-0 by the Finance Committee. This is primarily because the fire department, although it works very hard, has overtime issues. And this year, unlike many other years, two things happened that were really impacted the majority of the money requested. 2 members of the fire department went on National Guard duty, active duty for 8 months, and that requires overtime to cover their shifts. As you all know, or probably should know, the contract language and the fire department policy is to have a minimum of 5 fire people in the, on the shift at any one time. So when there's not enough, we have to call people in on overtime. Also, there was a retirement this year that wasn't expected, and that retirement required more overtime to cover for that person. Rather than get into too much detail, I'll call the fire chief forward to go further on it. This kind of overtime issue has occurred in the past. It just hasn't been for this large amount of money.
Thank you, Counselor. Nice recap.
I
Any
think.
questions? Just to give you a little history on the where overtime spending has been historically. In FY15, it was about $303,000. In 16, it was about $293,000. 17, about $211,000. 18, it was about $240,000. This year, if it had not been for the 2 members getting activated and the unanticipated retirement, would have been between $240 and $245 as well. The 2 members found out in November that they were leaving January 1st till August. While 2 is not a big number, it is 10% about of my department, so that leaves a huge manpower shortage. The request of the $157,946 for overtime, $42,000, almost $43,000 is just the overtime for those 2 firefighters, plus an additional $21,000 for the captain that decided to retire early and wanted to use his earned time instead of getting paid for his vacation time. Those are 2 things you can't plan on. This captain was scheduled to retire in October of this year. He ran the numbers and decided he was going to pull the plug and go early. So those were 2 big hits on the budget. It'll put my total overtime this year over $300,000, comparable to where it was in FY15. But had it not been to those 2 events, it would have been normally where it is, around the 240 range.
I'm sorry, go
Just take
ahead.
questions on individual lines if any of the counselors have them. or-
Counselor Conniff?
Can you just recap, Chief, what makes up that 300? So you mentioned 152,000 is, did you mention that?
So the total for that line item is my request, $157,946.56.
Counselor Conniff, is that what information?
That's it? Got it. Never mind.
Okay.
I have a question, Chief. So I didn't hear all the dates, but it sounds like multiple years the overtime is over hundreds of thousands of dollars. Am I correct? I mean, I mean, obviously it's not our decision; it's the mayor's decision. But would it be cheaper at some point to have another, to be able to? Considering we have to pay so much at the end, is it cheaper to have another firefighter?
Believe it or not, it's actually cheaper to pay overtime.
Huh.
because you're paying them a time and a half rate, but if you hire an employee, they have a salary and benefits. The benefits exceed the cost of overtime. I'm sure if you ask the firefighters, they would love to have an extra firefighter. With the mayor's approval, I applied for a federal staffing grant that for 3 years would staff 4 additional firefighters. So for 3 years, we would, the savings, if we get the grant in overtime, will actually fund the city's match for the grant. And then moving forward, the problem is the overtime will come down, but the salary and benefits for the new firefighter
Right.
outweigh the cost of overtime.
Okay. Counselor Peak?
I think you might have just answered this question, but in the case where there's other like long-term unanticipated, like a deployment, is there, this might be a problem with the unions, but is there any way to bring someone in on a temporary basis to help with that kind
So
of
one
stuff?
of the appropriation for the 2200 5111 line, what I did was I hired a military substitute. It's a civil service title. We're allowed to do that by law.
Okay.
We have to spell it out. So that person was hired for 6 months as a military substitute. When the captain just retired, the swearing we just did for the new firefighter Real, his status changed to permanent firefighter. But for 5.5 months, he was a military substitute because his step 1 salary is a lot cheaper than time and a half. And he
Right.
was already a part-time firefighter with the department.
Okay.
If I had another one on the list, I would have hired them from June to August. The problem is at the end of August, we lay them off, which brings more costs. But I did hire one military substitute that saved probably $20,000 in overtime.
Great. All right, thank you.
Still questions for the chief?
One more.
Okay,
And
that's
then
good.
I'll be done. So you had mentioned, Chief, that you'll probably hit the 300,000 mark for overtime, and you're asking for 269.6. So is it that you have enough to cover the additional 40,000, or will you be coming back for an additional 40,000?
I won't be coming back. My hope is that when I put this together in January, I was looking at projected vacation time. Vacation time is earned calendar year. I looked at historically, May and June are big months. People's children are time off from school, getting out of school. Right now it's trending where the projected vacation time is not hitting what 10 years of historical data that I have. So I will be, knock on wood, providing there's not a large fire or natural disaster, we'll be good with the appropriation requested.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Counselor Gomez?
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned that the request of the money for the overtime usually is similar every year. Do you have any plan for the next year that it could be less? Because it looks like it's a lot of money every year. And is there any plan to reduce that amount of money?
Well, it's funded, the budget that's been proposed is funding that line item at $150,000. That's in hopes that we get the staffing grant, which if we get the staffing grant, will be plenty of money. If we don't get the staffing grant, I'm hoping it's enough, but all it takes is one injury, one illness, and that $150,000 doesn't last long.
Okay. Counselor Lynch?
On this, there was the typo. Is there an updated version of this with the stretchers, the 6703 on the item 2310, 5319 miscellaneous tech services for $4,000? That's 6703. Remember, we were supposed to take that out. I don't know if there's an updated copy, because we budgeted twice for the stretchers and related equipment on that one.
I have totally forgotten that, Bill.
Okay.
Do you remember what?
It was just a typo error, right? So we budgeted it, it
Right.
came on 2 lines accidentally, and it needed to come off of that line with the
You mean the-
6703. So
Do you know what
if I
he's
need to make
talking
an
about?
amendment on that?
Yeah, so in ambulance, which is the 2310, 5490 maintenance service agreements, there's $3,000 there for stretcher maintenance. And I didn't, typo, I forgot to delete it from 5319 because I've had it in the wrong line item, so I moved it up, but I forgot to delete that, and we brought that up at subcommittee.
So which one has to go, the 4,000?
So 5319, 4,000 stays in that.
What is being eliminated?
In the verbiage, the 6703.
Just the verbiage.
Yep.
Oh, it's just in the
Because
verbiage.
The total line matches the 4,000, but it's just
Okay.
in there, so I don't want it to.
Well, the total line is wrong?
Correct. No, total line's fine.
So,
It's just typos, it's clerical error that should be taken out.
and is it only in this, is it only here then, or is it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Oh, in the description part.
So it's in the memo?
Yep.
Is there a need to correct that, Barb, or is it, since it's part of the memo, as long as we're aware that it was the type of...
As long as the money is correct.
Right, right.
And the account numbers are correct that are in the actual supplemental. And I think we're okay, Bill, just to approve it. Okay.
Additional questions for the chief while he's there? Councilor Gomez?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have another question, because it's a lot of money that we're gonna probably approve. It's all a bit more than $250,000 here. How much money we have in the free cash account?
750, is that correct? 750,000 is left in the free cash account. I asked that
Before
question.
this,
No, after this.
after this.
Is that correct, Mayor?
Not sure.
Does the finance,
Melissa's shaking her head.
I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
I
Doesn't
thought it
have
was
to be
separate.
perfect, but at least
Well,
Right.
close enough.
Good to-
I don't
Good to
have
know.
a running total of it right now, but it would be 750 before for sure, if not less than that.
so it might be less
So it'll
than
be like five.
something. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That answers your question, Councilor Gomez?
Yes.
Councilor Kwasinski?
Chief, we do appreciate all your efforts to try to keep the budget in line, and you have no control over when someone retires or someone gets called up for active duty. There's not much you can do about it. But for many years, we've had, as you say, about $250,000 spent in overtime. And I'm speaking for myself, but there may be other counselors here who would agree. We'd really like to know what your options and the city's options are in the future to adjust those figures and to stay on top of them. I'm thinking of all the management tools that would be available. And I'm considering asking for a letter from you to detail that to the mayor and to us. And just wanted to throw that out on the table with a little advance warning so you could be thinking about that, because we have concerns. And as I'm sure you do, and we want to keep everything running as smoothly as possible.
Well, considering we're maintaining staffing levels that were approved in 1973, the easy out is to increase staffing, but that comes with a bigger cost than $250,000.
So,
It's not, there's no easy answer other than adding staff, because we cannot cut. If we cut staff, there will be a significant impact to the service we provide. My hair is gone because I can't tell you how many times a week that I'm the only one, or the deputy's the only one left in the station, and we're going on an ambulance call by ourselves. Because the calls come, we're up to 70 times a year that all 3 ambulances are out. We're relying on mutual aid. We're fortunate, unlike some of our neighbors who are always in the news about lack of staffing, that we have not had that worst case scenario hit. It almost happened when the Eenies had the fire. I was the only person available to respond when that fire started. And luckily, the engine that was on a call at one of our schools was able to leave and get there, or that building wouldn't be standing there.
I'm thinking of things like the management tools, like what we offer for compensation when there's a callback.
That's a collective bargaining issue.
I understand, but that becomes a tool that the municipality has to work with within the collective bargaining issue. So those would be the things I would look at and ask for you to, at least we'd be aware of what those issues are. For example, there's a minimum amount of time. Somebody responds, they say they're coming in, they come in, they're here, there's a minimum time that somebody comes in. It could be they're needed for 15 minutes, they're needed longer. My understanding is that there's a minimum time. That is how many hours?
The minimum callback is 3 hours.
Is 3 hours, and that's at straight time or
Time and a half.
overtime? So that would be someone comes in, gets the tone, comes in, and they get paid for 4.5 hours.
They get paid for 3 hours.
3 hours, but the pay is for 4.5. Time and a half, 3 hours at time and a half, so that's what comes in. Those kinds of issues, I think it's important for the public to understand, are the parameters within which we operate. So that, just thinking about that.
Well, that's something, Counselor, that as a resident and taxpayer, I would not be comfortable messing with, because those are the people coming in when the station's empty.
Absolutely.
And
Those are
considering we're in a process of bargaining with the union, I wouldn't want to discuss any other options in this forum.
I wasn't suggesting we discuss any particular options at any time. I'm just saying that it's important, I think, for the council to be aware of the options. So, that being said, I think we look forward to the $269,000.
Just a clarification, so aware of the options, I would just, you pointed out actually something very specific in the contract that has been longstanding in the contract. So when you're talking about the options that you want council to be aware of, I'm just looking for clarification, as we are sitting down with the unions right now. We've just started negotiations, and now it's out there that the council may have an issue, or you want the council to be aware of a long-standing process when firefighters come in and they don't know how long they're staying, that we need to look at the pay that they receive.
Mr. President.
Counselor.
A counselor has an issue. I would not like to pluralize that. We have not made any motion.
We've made no request.
We made no request. Counselor Kwasinski has a concern. This counselor does not. I just want you to know that, and I don't think it should be put out there that the council has an issue, because that's an exaggeration of the commentary right now.
And I don't think, certainly as the chief alluded to, we would want to jeopardize any kind of negotiation going on. So, I think we need to stay within our parameters. I think contract negotiation certainly is executive branch responsibilities. I understand your point, but it's probably outside our purview to be involved at that issue. I guess. Okay, is that it? Okay, thank you. Anything, questions more for the chief? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council on this appropriation? This is your opportunity to come address the council. Okay, Councilor Riss, entertain a motion.
I hereby make the following motion for the full council to approve the following appropriation for the fire department. The amount requested is $269,684.83 to be transferred from free cash, to be transferred to the fire full-time regular pay, $31,202. Fire overtime pay, $157,946.56. Sick leave buyback, $25,285.27. Fire radio, telephone, and other communications, $8,298. Fire building equipment repair and maintenance, $1,583. Repairs to vehicles and equipment, $13,000. EMS incentive, $20,000. Maintenance service agreements, $3,000. Repairs to vehicle and equipment, $1,370. Miscellaneous professional tech services, $4,000. Ambulance, medical, and surgical support, $4,000, for a total of $269,684.83 for the following purpose: pay balances and anticipated needs of the fire department as listed by Chief Motter on January 14th, 2019.
Second.
Okay, a motion, a second, to approve the supplemental appropriation of $269,684.83. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Okay, biggie here. Charter Review Committee has put forward to the full council, with the mayor's approval. And I say that because the mayor has to approve of anything we put forward to change the charter, whether it's going on the ballot or not. This is a Charter Review Committee, not an independent commission, which would not have anything to do with this body or the mayor. But this is a Charter Review Committee, therefore the mayor and the full council have to approve any amendments we put forward. Rather than read my entire report, I know you've received it, I would say that this came out of the committee without Article 1 definition. But the city attorney, and I do agree, decided that we needed a definition to make sure that there was language in that definition that was fairly accurate and specific. And as I'll quote him, "It is better to have proposed changes to the charter, especially as it impacts voting and election of public representatives, be transparent to and readily understandable by the electorate." Therefore, he has added new Article 1 definition of ranked choice voting. That was the major change, and he reduced the amount of language in the transition language of Article 9, which is still there. Since the writing of this, we have had communication, Councilor Peak and Barbara, by the way, our city clerk and is our clerk for elections, contributed greatly to this debate, and I thank her very much. I think you might have all seen her report that she put out again today, or the other day. Since this report was written, we will be seeking legislative approval to put the definition in Article 9 before the legislature as an special act article, but not on the ballot. The concern is if the definition was on the ballot as a first question and it was voted no, and then people voted yes to the other positions, there would be a lot of confusion. Since Article 9 is a definition, Article 1 is a definition and Article 9 is transition, they can be contingent on the passing by the voters of the language on ranked choice voting. And because the attorney has to write a summary for the voters, that's part of the way this has to go out, that summary can detail what ranked choice voting is. In other words, getting that definition in front of the voters. It would be a better way of doing this. And the city attorney agreed that would be a better proposal. So tonight's motions will be to put on the ballot the two ranked choice voting and the term of the mayor sections, but also to send to the legislature the Section 1 and the section on Article 9.6 for just approval by special act. Needless to say, the legislature may say, no, we want it all in the ballot, and that's their prerogative. I have to also add that this is going to take some time for the legislature, as Barbara pointed out. It's iffy if this gets done in time for us because the legislature is slow to begin with, and secondly, it's the summer, so they don't meet all the time. So she's very concerned, but we got this done as fast as we could. We met many meetings on it, had a large meeting up here, and to be honest, I don't remember any opposition to ranked choice voting, especially from the public that came those evenings. I would like to read a statement from one of our committee members who couldn't come tonight, Pat Broff. I promised him I would. I am not able to attend tonight's meeting regarding the agenda items related to ranked choice voting and mayoral term. I would like it to be known that as the Charter Review Committee has worked through these two items over several weeks, I am in favor of both of them going to the voters. While I was originally skeptical of the RCV system, after learning more about it, I believe this would be a progressive system for our community. I feel that having the system in place for the mayor and the precinct councilor seats will open up the opportunity for more candidates coming forward. I also, after some thought, feel the mayoral term of 4 years versus the current 2-year term is something that would benefit the community over time as well. While these are my views, I feel it is best if we hear from the voters via an election process. I also want to thank especially Councilor Peak. Tom, you've been an advocate for this for a long time, and because of his efforts, the committee was well educated on this entire subject, and I think you changed some minds on whether or not we should proceed, and I applaud you for that, Councilor. So that being said, I would like to say also that certainly the council's prerogative, if we would like to amend our procedure tonight, but we would have to have that language before us if we're going to amend it. And secondly, it does have to go back to the city attorney. He made it clear to me that if there is any amendments to this language or a new language put forward, we would have to send it back to him because the House will want to know that he's approved it. The House, the legislature, the House Council. Okay, so I'm here to answer questions.
Okay.
And I have I will also thank the other councilors on the committee. I apologize. Councilor Gomez, Counselor McCoy and Counselor Peak, you were I'm very happy that you were on the committee and helped us with this. Thank you.
So, Councilor, it's just before we call the public up. So the changes we're talking about, one is a 4-year term for mayor. We chose not to look at 4-year terms for city councilors at this time. Ranked choice voting for single election races, which would be all the precincts and the mayoral election. At the moment, at large, which is a multi-race person, is not the recommendation of the committee at this point. So that's a summary of what is all in these motions. If anyone from the public now who would like to address the council and just say their support or not supportive of either of these issues, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Sarah Amoroso. I live on Winter Street, and I am a member of the Charter Review Committee as a citizen, along with Mr. Gomez, Mr. McCoy, Mr. Vist, and Mr. Peak. I would like to speak in favor of the two issues before you and ask that you pass them on for a special act to be approved for the voters of Easthampton to vote on. Regarding ranked choice voting, I was with Tom an early proponent of it because I feel like it has great potential to improve the climate of elections in our city and to make more opportunities available for people who might be considered non-traditional candidates, that being the largest portion of the electorate in our city. And if you look out at the country today, things are very nasty. And I think that it's important to take chances, and I don't think it's a risk, I think it's an opportunity, when we can, to say that we want to be more collaborative in the way that we elect people, and to say that we want to give people a chance when they may not have felt that there was an opening for them before. Regarding the 4-year mayorship, we are a very small city. I mean, a lot of people haven't even heard of Easthampton. They get it confused with Eastham or Easton or East whatever. And we're a long way from Boston. And building those relationships, not just with our own representatives, but with the regional delegation and with people who represent places not even near Easthampton. It's important to maintain those relationships. And running for office is a big deal. You know, it's hard. It costs money. It takes your time. And when you are so easily overlooked as a city, I think we need that advantage. So thank you to everyone else who worked with us on the committee. And that's all.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address the council?
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Chris Korchak on Clark Street. I've been going to the Charter Review Committee meetings, and I want to thank Dan and Tom for their leadership in getting us here. I'm in favor of ranked choice voting. I'm hoping that the council will look at adding ranked choice voting to the multi-winner races. There are problems that exist with that, not the least of which is bullet voting, and ranked choice voting solves, as far as I know, all of those issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Did you have something to say, Mayor? Okay.
So I too would like to thank the Charter Review Committee to date, and I'm sure it will carry forward its great work and very thorough consideration of concerns and questions and ideas from the public. But also there is a small dedicated group of citizens and councilors here that come even if they are not on the Charter Commission formula, and I have seen in the first person what they add to it, and councilors' risks, dedication to sending out changes or what was discussed in the form of the charter has been very helpful, certainly for me, and I thank you for that. As far as what is before us, and I'll steal a quote from Councilor Peak in the paper. If there is enough interest, if there is conversation of substance, then why not put it before the voters if it needs to go? Because the committee is giving a thorough vetting and revision sort of perspective and eye to our charter to then put forward to the voters things that might be of interest, efficiency, and just a greater spirit of democracy, small d. And I will say that that opinion has grown on me in the last several months. Councilor Peak, thank you. I will confess to being neutral on a lot of the propositions that were before us when they were presented at the committee. I really looked at as a will of the people or whatnot. Ranked choice voting, especially for mayor, is very attractive to me, and I do think it goes first and foremost to divisive elections that we see on all levels of our government. I do share the concern on district level or even the at-large and one. I've said this a lot. I'm worried about legal costs. I'm worried about without more backing from the state for implementing those elections and maybe even mayor will be challenged. Again, I think that is a choice that the voters need to make. I'm just expressing my opinion as mayor in that perspective, and am very heartened by the comments of our city clerk that the state is taking a hard look at this and hopefully very soon will provide technical guidance. And just consider, I mean, this year we have a municipal election and that was a bump in the city clerk's budget by elections by $25,000. And trying to figure out what that bump will be for ranked choice voting is concerning, but I know that those on the charter committee and the voters, when they vote for it afterwards, there will be a dedicated crew that will help us all look at that and figure out where that comes from. The term of office for mayor, so I in the beginning went from no, it should be 2 years. We're kind of a village town city because of our size. People are stunned if they know where we are, that we are a city. I think it's a very good form of government for Easthampton, and in my mind it was, but we're small and a lot of people know each other and 2 years is fine. I think that not just the last election but the history of elections show what type of person can take the risk and really pause and decide a career in public service on such an important position in 2 years is a very quick turnaround. And it was listening to Councilor Rist and sitting in those charter meetings where 4 years definitely started entering my head as the way to go. Being almost through my first term, and talking and watching other mayors, I do believe it puts Easthampton at a disadvantage for the mere fact that major municipalities around us have a 4-year term for mayor. And not that I'm looked at as kind of a reverse lame duck, because they know I'm not going to be around for the next 2, like I'm running again, and who knows what will happen. I think it gives Easthampton a firmer standing if the mayor is 4 years. I think it's a commitment shown from the community that in an executive branch and legislative branch form of government, grant cycles and certainly the relationships. And right now, at this period of history, with so many new folks in our Western Mass state level delegation and the turnover we're going to see, I think, in the federal delegation sooner rather than later, 4 years is really important to work as a group and go forward. So I would be in favor of that. And the concept of what's on the ballot is correct in not having any kind of a fiscal assumption attached to it. And it is an idea and a concept and a tool that I think should be taken very seriously by the voters and given much due consideration. And I know that'll happen. We're a voting kind of city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor.
I just wanted to give one point of information. the term of office for the mayor, if it's passed by the voters, will not affect the mayor that wins the next election. That election will be for a 2-year term, because that will be on the ballot at the same time. So if it is passed, the election in 2021 will be for a mayor for a 4-year term, but not this coming election. That's important, and I hope in the summary we do put that out there, because it would affect the voters, I think, knowing what they were doing.
And this is also with the ranked choice voting, right? That would not be.
That would not be,
until
no,
2020.
it wouldn't take effect until 2021, but I
Right.
also want to point out that we put in the transition language a budgetary if budget is limited, the mayor at the time could decide not to do ranked choice voting for that election, but only that election. So it could be 4 years. But that's because this is an expensive undertaking and the budget is tight. So the mayor would wanted that kind of language in there at least for one election. So that's in 9.6 if you read that carefully. There's a budget limitation there that a mayor can prevent ranked choice voting, but only for one election. I think Councilor Peak mentioned that I think without that limitation of one election in Memphis, they kept putting it off, right?
Yeah,
So-
for like 20 years.
So we decided, okay, we'll let you do that one time. So anyway.
So we get back to the public here. If anyone from the public would like to come address the council on this, either of those topics, is your opportunity. Just say your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Dan Gilbert. I live on Parsons Street. So I very much appreciate that the town that I live in, and I haven't lived here very long, is taking up this issue and is doing so in a way that really involved a lot of thorough education and discussion. I know there were a lot of people going into it on the Charter Review Committee who were unfamiliar with ranked choice voting entirely and really came in kind of with an open mind about learning what it means. So there was very little rhetoric and there was a lot of like sort of real talk, and I really appreciate that. For me personally, it removes a lot of the cynicism from our current process. Just because you can have a couple candidates that split each other's votes because they're kind of similar, and this fixes that. I mean, this isn't sort of like a new fancy way of doing things. This is a solution for a very, very big systematic problem with how we elect people in this country. So I think it's very good to look at that. The other thing I just want to say is I really want to thank the town clerk who did a lot of the research and reporting to the charter committee, because there was a lot of data there that I think was very, very useful. So I'm very much in support of putting this to the voters, and I think it's really exciting to be living in a town that is sort of open to these ideas, but in a way that's very fact-based. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public would like to address the council on either of these topics?
My name is Miriam Ansara, 359 Main Street, number 2A. I want to say I'm really, really pleased at ranked choice voting. I lived with it for 30-something years in Cambridge, and each election cycle was exciting and invigorating. And there's a way in which it actually gets more people involved, makes the election much more personal. And I have to say that until we finally gave in and went to electronic counting, the ballot counting was the high point of every 2 years. It would take sometimes up to 10 days, and every morning people would get coffee and donuts and gather in the gym to see where the counting was going and to watch the counters get older and older and older. It was wonderful, and you felt as though you really had your representative on the council. So another reason I'm glad I live in Easthampton. In terms of the mayoral 4-year term, I really think that this is an important step forward. In Cambridge, again, no, I'm not gonna, I don't wish I was still there. But anyway, in Cambridge again, the mayor came from the city council and we had a city manager. So the mayor didn't really have to know how to run the city. Their job was to represent the city at the mayoral level. And I have been kind of appalled that anybody would be expected to learn the job and then do the job in 2 years. It almost makes it an imperative that that person get reelected in order to be able to do anything. 4 years, on the other hand, and I hope you agree, Nicole, 4 years, you know, you've had time to find your feet, you've had time to figure out what's going on, and then you have time to actually tuck into the projects you'd like to see happen in the city. You know the city councilors well, the voters know you well, and you can actually, I think, have a greater chance of doing your job thoroughly and well. So I'm very much in favor of it. And there's nothing to say that after 4 years, we can't then elect somebody new without fear that they're going to have that terrible learning curve all over again. And if we like the job they've done, what's the matter with another 4 years? We've had mayors longer than that.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address the council on this topic? This is your opportunity. I'm not seeing one. Okay, Councilor Riss, entertain a motion then.
I would first ask the councilors if they have any questions. Now's the time, because, well, I'm going to provide 4 motions, and we could just ask questions as we get to those motions. But I want to make sure you have no other questions of city officials like the mayor before I put a motion forward. Bill has a question.
Bill, Councilman.
Thank you. I want to speak as a resident, you know, and a counselor. I had a lot of reservations with the ranked choice voting. I wasn't educated, and Councilor Peak spent multiple hours with me at multiple occasions, and same with Councilor Coniff over here. Last night we had a long discussion about this, and I think my only fear is the financial side of it, but I really am becoming a proponent of it. And after listening to a lot of the residents in town, I really think that it seems like it might be the right move for us. And I definitely feel that it needs to be up to the voters. You know, I wholeheartedly agree that this is very important and that the city should have that choice. So, thank you. That's my 2 cents.
Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm part of the Charter Review Committee, and we have a long discussion there about the pros and cons, if any cons about their ranked choice vote. Like I said at the meeting, I didn't buy all the arguments that they have. That's me. I don't buy all of them. But I have to admit that the last decision should be the voters. And I don't disagree. The people have to choose. So what we're doing now, even if we agree or disagree at the ranked choice vote, I think the last decision should be the voters. If voters agree that we have to adopt that system of voting, so that's the way that we have to go. Yes, I just want to put that clear. That even if we agree or disagree here, what we're voting today is to put in the ballot for let people vote for it. And same with the 4-year term for the mayor.
Right, thank you. Did I see your hand, Councilor?
Yeah. So as the counselor that brought the charter review to the table, I felt bad that I wasn't, my schedule didn't allow me to be part of the review committee. But you know, the impetus for me to bring this forward was the terms, you know, for the mayor specifically, because I felt strongly after being on the council and seeing, you know, how 2 years goes by like this, what you can really get done before you have to start campaigning again was ridiculous. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and if it's a 2-year term, you might have to make a hard decision and not get to see the result of that decision, and be able to justify that. So I think that, you know, I think Mary said it really well. That was the thing that kind of brought it forward, the reason why I felt like it was important to do. And I think that ranked choice voting is just something that is a beneficial thing to bring forward. I'm really glad that we're going to be able to bring it to the voters and allow them to decide. I personally think it's a great idea. And I just want to I don't want too much adoration here because we pat ourselves on the back a lot, but I do want to just thank all the members of the committee and Dan specifically for putting out information. So even though I couldn't make the meetings, I felt like I wasn't missing much. So I appreciate that. And I do hope that this is just one piece of the puzzle as we move forward and we look to educate the voters so they can make a decision that's based on facts and knowledge, which I think is a really important piece. So thanks.
Okay. Councilor Peak?
Mr. President, I have a small procedural question. Well, I actually have two small procedural questions. The first one is, are we going to just be voting on 4 different motions and then we're done, or do we need a motion to send whatever finalized legislative petition we are crafting to the voters?
I think that legislative petition in the hands of the city attorney and the city clerk is sufficient because the content of the language is not changing. The ballot questions will be in order of what the city attorney feels they should be. Most likely, we have to approve those eventually, right, Barbara?
You've got to tell me exactly how they're going to be on the ballot.
Right, and that'll come from the city attorney. He mentioned that he thought it would be useful to get them to the legislature. I don't know where he is with that, but if that helps us get this through the legislature, I think we will. Okay. But eventually, the ballot questions will come before us because we have to approve the ballot.
Yes. Okay.
So for procedural point of view, voting on these motions, I believe, will start the ball rolling. We've done charter changes before, and all of this act language came from Barbara. So thank God we have an experienced city clerk. I want to tell you.
Yeah. No.
A rookie in this job would not be good. Let me say that.
So if whatever is voted tonight, the special act, Nicole will have to sign off on it, and once that's done, I'll put it together with a cover letter, and it goes off to Dan Carey and Don Humison.
Okay.
And it's there.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
My second question, there's a really minor amendment that I was thinking about making, but I can hold off. My my big question is the language that as I interpret it from the city solicitor, was that ranked choice voting, it does not defy the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that, but that we need.
He said.
Yes, but that we need to define it clearly. So I guess my question is, do we have any latitude at all to make amendments without requiring an entire other opinion from the city solicitor, so long as we stay within the parameters of what he said? That, I guess, is
My answer to that is I don't think so, because as I said before, this is charter language, and even commas make a difference. So if we change some of the words, whatever they are, he's going to have to say, oh, that's okay, but he's going to have to do that.
Right.
And if he says, no, it's not okay, I think we have to vote on it again.
Right.
I have to tell you, this is a first for me, because the last time we did charter review, it was simple special acts. We didn't do anything on the ballot.
Yep.
So
No,
I would defer to him that amending this would take some time. I have to say, in my opinion, and he told me he wanted it back if there was amendments. So I'm just putting that out there, Tom. I see your hope for it, and you certainly can try. I mean, we could go ahead and do it. I just worry that it won't get back to us in time. That's all, from the legislature. That's all.
What exactly was what amendment were you thinking about?
My thing is, it's kind of simple, but right now, and if this seems overly nitpicky, then I apologize. But right now, we're saying in the case that there's more than 2 candidates running, we should use ranked choice voting. And this nightmare scenario came to me where you have a 2-way election, and very late in the process there's some sort of scandal or whatnot, and another person says, well, I'm running a write-in campaign, right? And so suddenly you have 3 candidates on the ballot. Do you see what I'm saying? that there might only be two, but if there was a sudden and very like well organized, now for that to happen, something terrible would obviously, that successful write-in campaigns normally only happen after like scandals.
Or theoretically, someone might withdraw. I mean, they may have an issue. They have.
I have a solution. It's not in the definition. That kind of problem is not in the charter. Then the ad hoc committee can address it in the ordinances.
Well,
because I believe
no, we wouldn't, because the language here, right, says if more than 2 candidates are running for the office of blah blah blah, and I would sort of just like to strike that if more than 2. It probably will never come up, but if it did, we'd feel kind of silly about the whole thing. But
I'm not.
Did you?
Well, a write-in, you would never be on the ballot. A write-in is a write-in. People
Right.
would write them in.
But somebody,
So how would?
if we were not using ranked choice voting, then you couldn't say write someone in and then rank your second choice. Do you see what I'm saying?
So you think it should, even if there's only 2 people?
That it should still. I mean, it's really, it doesn't really change anything other than that you could, and then there's always a write-in line like there always is. But that you could theoretically rank a write-in and then your second or even third choice. I mean, again, I don't necessarily think this will ever happen, but since it's being codified in our charter, but then the question, before I suggest any amendments, the question that I have is how comfortable are we as a body with the notion of hoping that the solicitor.
So I mean, I would think that it would, so you'd say, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the election for mayor shall be conducted
Using ranked choice voting.
I don't think that really changes anything legally, like that the attorney would say. It's still the same idea.
Still the same idea.
I just put 2, not more than 2, just to make it clear that if there was 2, but.
Is all I can say, excuse me, Mr.
Yeah, Councilor.
I have to send it to him. He may say this is fine. He may agree with you. He may not. I don't know. But we still have to have it approved.
Yeah, and I know that in doing that, I'm opening a door, and that's why I'm just asking the council what they think about opening that door, because I'm aware of the possibility that it could potentially cause a delay.
And the 2-candidate language, that comes from him, right?
No, that came from me.
Did?
Just to clarify it. I guess I can see that there could be a very strong last-minute write-in campaign, and somebody's handing out stickers.
Yeah.
And the way this is
That's how
worded.
John Saback got elected.
You know, so it could, yeah.
Yeah, but he approved this language as it is. It is quite specific that we won't use ranked choice voting if there's only 2 candidates. That's why that's here, right? Does the definition give us that? Tom, I don't know what to do. I agree with you. But one thing that you've said that makes me feel comfortable leaving it as is and making sure it gets to the state is that you said it's an unlikely scenario. And over the years, we've only had 2 elections in which ranked choice voting in the mayor race would have happened. So I don't know. I just don't know how to answer your question. We could amend it and take it out, but I still think I have to send it there,
Yeah,
Barb.
I think it's a valid.
So, Councilor, at this point, have these been vetted by the?
These
attorney?
came from the, yes.
So they've been seen as it is right now. This has been seen.
The city attorney approved this language.
Right.
In fact, he added the language on motion 4, section 1, article 1.
I guess my concern that by changing it, we run the risk that we may not be able to make the 19 election. Even as it is, we may not be able to make the 19 election. It's a game of risk.
Yeah.
How are you willing
How concerned
to
are you,
risk
Tom?
that?
So.
Yeah, I mean, right, and that's the thing is, it really depends, because if we can just send it to the solicitor tomorrow, it goes, yeah, that's good, and it goes out the door, that's not a problem. But, yeah, I don't know. I could really go both ways. What do other people think?
I'd like to leave it as is, Tom, only because I'd like to see it get on the ballot. I really don't want to risk that. I think
I I would risk it.
So here's my thought. I mean, from what I can see, I'm not a lawyer, but from what I can see here, it doesn't seem like this would really impact the spirit of what it is saying. I mean, that's just a little bit more specificity. That if we removed, it wouldn't change the spirit of this of the sentence, and basically it would, if we just removed it, it would allow for that situation that might be rare that you're talking about. But it seems like it would be an easy assessment to make quickly. Like, if more than 2, if you remove that, like that's something that if I was a lawyer, I think I'd be able to figure that out really quickly.
Don't have to do much research.
I feel like I can
don't think
figure it
there'll
out
be
right
any
now.
research.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I'm fine with removing it. I feel like
I will certainly vote in favor. Let me just say
Yeah.
that, if that's what the council wants to do. I just wanted to point out what he said, and Barbara said that it takes time, so we'll send it to him immediately that we
Yeah.
made these adjustments. Can it go to the legislature?
Right.
Okay, I see Councilor Lynch. Councilor Lynch?
You know, I think it's a great bring up, and if we're gonna do this, we might wanna just do it the right way and do it 100% the right way instead of trying to go back at it after. I think removing it might be the best option and doing the proper verbiage, even if it means sending it to them. And
My suspicion is you have support for your motion, if we're simply just removing if more than 2 candidates.
Okay.
So why don't we
What I'm
proceed
going to
that
do
way?
is
We can take a
make the
vote.
motions, and then you will ask for an amendment. We'll
Okay.
approve the amendment, but I'd ask you to give specific language
Yep.
for the amendment.
Okay.
If we're ready, I'll start with motion 1.
Yeah, I think we've heard it from the public, so go
I
ahead.
move that the City Council approve the following amendment to the Home Rule Charter through special act of legislature. Section 2, Article 7 is hereby amended with the insertion of a new Section 7-1.1, election of mayor by ranked choice voting, to read as follows: notwithstanding any law to the contrary, if more than 2 candidates are running for office of the mayor, the election shall be conducted using ranked choice voting. Need a second.
Second? Okay,
Now
Tom
your
said
amendment,
second.
Tom.
I make a motion to amend the language to say, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the election for the office of mayor shall be conducted using ranked choice voting.
second.
Okay, second for that amendment. Okay, any discussion on that amendment? All those in favor?
Barbara, do you have that? You have it all down?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. So we have a motion, a second, for Section 2, Article 7 as amended. Any additional comments on that? Councilor Kwasinski?
So we're reserving that we're presuming the attorney would agree with this, or we're going to send it to the attorney before we send it to the legislature?
Yeah, well, sending it to this attorney, but we're assuming it's going to be such a minor thing that he may be able to look at in half an hour for $500.
If he has a problem, let me just say this, if he has a problem, we got to deal with it in June.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's hope he doesn't. That's the risk we're taking.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
how about
So the
this? If
question-
he says, no, there's a huge problem with that, can we schedule an emergency meeting?
That would be a special
Yep.
meeting up to the
Yeah, we
president.
could. It's always an option.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
We just have to send out certified letters. or
Okay.
something.
Any more comments?
Is there any way through reconsideration to have it just come up again to reconfirm at the next meeting?
Well, we're trying to get it done before the next
Yeah.
meeting, JP.
Right, because we need
running
the
out of-
legislature to approve this by September. And so that is the only thing that makes this tricky. I mean, otherwise I'd say, let's make all the amendments we want. And see
Did
where
we
it
vote
goes.
on this?
We have a motion, a second. Any more comments? We're ready to vote?
So what will happen if the attorney says no? And
I will
we've
send this
approved it
immediately
and
to the
sent-
mayor.
And it's being sent to the legislature.
If he says it has to be voted on again, I will ask the president to call a special meeting of the council, which, I don't remember the charter off the top of my head, but he has to.
There is a
notify
procedure,
everybody,
yeah.
And it'd be only one thing on the agenda, that would be re-voting this in. I think we're okay, but that's what'll happen.
Okay, a motion, a second. Any additional, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
We're not done. I move that the City Council approve the following amendment to the Home Rule Charter through special act of the legislature. Section 3, Article 7 is hereby amended by the insertion of a new Section 7.1.2, election of the district city council by ranked choice voting, to read as follows: notwithstanding any law to the contrary, if more than 2 candidates are running for the office of district city councilor, the election shall be conducted using ranked choice voting.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Is there an amendment?
Yes, I move to amend, motion to say, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the elections for the office of district city or precinct city council.
No, you can't. It has to be
We have to
district.
say district.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we haven't changed the charter yet to say precinct.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
That'll all come as.
All right. Shall be conducted using ranked choice voting. Second.
Yeah, motion and a second to change wording it just read by Council Peak. Additional questions?
Just to address the district versus precinct, he addresses it, Mark, in the letter to us, because we are considering changing all of the districts to precincts because we want it to match what is done with elections, but that hasn't been approved by anybody yet, except the charter committee. So unfortunately, we have to keep the language that's currently in the charter in this language.
Yeah, point taken.
Okay, and additional questions? All those in favor
Of the
amendment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Now we have a motion and a second for the main motion. And more discussion on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion 2 passes.
Okay, motion number 3, I move that the City Council approve the following amendment to the Home Rule Charter through special act of the legislature. Article 3, Section 3.1 is hereby amended by striking out subsection B, inserting in place thereof the following subsection. B, subsection 3.1, mayor term of office. The term of office of the mayor shall be 4 years, beginning on the first Monday of January following biennial city election at which chosen and until a successor is qualified.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Additional questions, comments, or amendments? Okay, none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
Bear with me, this is a long motion. Motion number 4, I move that the City Council approve the following amendment to the Home Rule Charter through the special act of the legislature. Section 1, Article 1 is amended by the addition of the new definition to read, ranked choice voting means an election system in which voters rank the candidates for an office in order of preference. In ranked choice voting, each voter casts a single vote by ranking candidates in order of preference, indicating the voter's first choice, second choice, and so forth, until the voter has assigned a single numerical ranking to each candidate on the ballot. When ballots are counted, if one candidate receives 50% of the first votes cast for the office of the election, the candidate is declared the winner. If no candidate receives 50% of the first choice votes cast in the first round, an instant runoff automatically occurs. In each instant runoff, the candidate receiving the least number of votes in the prior round is withdrawn from the election. Withdrawn candidate. The highest ranked non-withdrawn candidate of each voter is the voter's first choice vote. And such first choice vote is used in calculating the total number of votes for each remaining non-withdrawn candidate. The instant runoff process is repeated until a candidate receives 50% of the total first choice votes cast for the office in the election, at which time a winner is declared. A ranked choice voting ballot shall not interfere with a voter's ability to rank at least one write-in candidate. Section 5, should the voters of the city adopt the provisions of 7.1.1 and 7.1.2, Article 9, Section 9.6 is hereby amended by adding the following new subsection. In order to implement ranked choice voting, the City Council President shall appoint an ad hoc committee to draft an ordinance establishing the ballot format and the procedural rules of casting and counting ranked choice voting votes. The committee shall also be tasked with establishing an implementation budget. The ad hoc committee shall consist of 7 members. 1 shall be the city clerk or his or her designee. 1 shall be a member of the Board of Registers of Voters. 3 shall be registered voters in the city, and 2 shall be members of the City Council. General provisions of ranked choice voting elections shall be specified by ordinance, provided, however, that a voter's lower ranked choices shall not impact the likelihood of a voter's higher ranked choices being elected. To the extent possible, a ranked choice voting ballot shall allow voters to rank as many choices as there are candidates. In the event that the voting equipment cannot accommodate a number of rankings on the ballot equal to the number of candidates, the Board of Registers of Voters may limit the number of choices a voter may rank to the maximum number allowed by the voting equipment. A ranked choice voting ballot shall not interfere with a voter's ability to rank at least one write-in candidate. The ad hoc committee shall present its proposal to the city council for its review and adoption with or without amendments. The ordinance will become effective for the first regular biennial city election after approval, dependent upon funding in accordance with the implementation budget. The budget limitation shall only be applicable for the first biennial election following the voter approval. Ranked choice voting shall be implemented by the second regular biennial city election following voter approval of either Section 2 or Section 3 of this Act. Section 6 of the Act. Section 2, 3, and 4 of this Act shall only take effect upon voter ratification of each section considered as separate ballot questions. Sections 1 and 5 will only take effect if either Section 2 and 3 are ratified by the voters. That's a motion. Second?
A motion, and a second for motion number 4 that Councilor Riss just read. Councilor Coniff.
So at the risk of being beheaded, I have to admit that I do not fully understand why this is not also being implemented for multi-winner, both school committee and at large. And it's a mystery to me why having both of those, having separate ballot counting will be less confusing than having one. So I don't understand that, and I will tell you I have an amendment prepared to include school committee elections and at-large elections. I will not put them forward if it is the view of this committee, this council, that I'm going to blow the whole thing up by doing this. That now we're going to ask the lawyer to look at two things he's never looked at before that are substantially similar to what the wording is for the other ones. But I would like to do that, but I also kind of don't want to be tarred and feathered. So,
Point of order, Mr. President. I have no problem with the amendment, but I don't think it affects Section 1 and 6.
except it does.
Oh, because it adds a section. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So what it would do is I would put forth an amendment to add single winner in front of the definition for ranked choice voting. And then I would add a section in the definition called multi-winner ranked choice voting with a definition for that. And then there would be a section 3.1 and 3.2 for school committee and at-large. So we can vote to add single winner only. We can, I'm disappointed that we're kind of under this time crunch with something
I am
this big.
too, but unfortunately, we discussed this at great length. From my point of view, if we want to do your amendment should happen first, then then just for procedure, we'll amend this if that passes. The committee talked at long length about multi-winner races and felt it was an administration problem. We needed to not confuse the voters totally because that particular ballot, and those of us who aren't as familiar as Councilor Peak with ranked choice voting understand its confusion. Councilor Peak will say, well, I don't think it is as confusing, but that was the debate we had. I think also we wanted to make sure that this would pass. If we added too much layers of different voting possibilities, none of it would pass. So those were the things we talked about. And it was a process decision. I think we only got 4 votes out of 7 the night we voted on it for it. So, Councilor McCoy, before you put the amendment, I think we got to debate it before. I do feel it will definitely delay this because that's a big change, then we have to have it sent to him.
I think part of what the Charter Review Committee was experiencing, and a lot of us had heard about, were really unaware of it. So we're trying to think the public would see it too. And the concept of having 2 people and then one person needs to be 50% or over is probably easier from an educational perspective and moving this forward versus you have 4 seats, and so it's like, you need to have 27%, and then I remember there was some unusual, Councilor Peak, maybe you can help me there, we were just, talking about, well, when Councilor Carey had 62%.
Would you like me to make my elevator pitch for multi-winner and we can see where we land on it?
Okay, that's better than mine.
Well, yours is pitch 4, yours was...
Yeah,
not sure, but yeah. So when you're doing a ranked choice voting election with a single winner,
the cutoff is 50%. And the reason why it's 50% is because if you have 50% plus one vote, then no matter what happens with the other candidates, they cannot, like, you have won that election. If you have an election with multiple people, when it comes to the actual voter, what they're doing is the exact same thing. They pick who their favorite candidate is, who their second favorite candidate is, and so on. It doesn't affect that at all. In that sense, I actually do believe it's slightly less confusing than our current system, which has you voting in two different ways. For some offices you pick one candidate, for some offices you pick 4 candidates, for one office you pick 6 candidates. In this, you do the same exact thing for every single race. You rank them from your favorite to your least favorite, as many as you want and no more. But the thing is that when you have a multi-winner race, the threshold for winning, instead of being 50%, is determined by the number of slots. So if you have a 4-winner race, it's 20% of the vote plus 1, because imagine you got 100 votes. If 4 people have 21 votes each, it doesn't matter what happens to the other people. They're not going to be able to get more votes than any of those. There's not 21 votes left for them to get ahead. So that is, in that sense, it's basically the exact same thing. There is one additional step in a multi-winner race, and that is that because there's multiple people running, if, like, you can have votes over your threshold, right? So in this case, say we're talking about the at-large, 20% plus 1 of the votes. If you have votes over that threshold, those votes could almost be considered wasted, right? Because it's like that person has already won. And so the idea is that there's a mechanism put in place for those excess votes to go to those voters' second choices, so that if you have one insanely popular person who gets like 80% of the vote, like the supporters of that insanely popular person are allowed to express their second choices. If that, does that make sense?
See, I think you make my point. Because for me, I mean, I still think it's still confusing. And I'll follow with whatever the council wants as a vote, certainly, but for someone as knowledgeable on the topic to you, having, have to ask, does that make sense? I worry, is this going to be just like, what? Someone gets 62%, we're going to take votes from them, so I worry about that.
Internally there's a bit of processing, but the point that I really do need to make is that if you, the point that I was trying to make is that from the perspective of the voters, it is the exact same thing. What happens, like, behind the scenes to make sure that the votes elect the people that best proportionately represent the community has an extra step to it. But from the point of view of the voters, it's really quite simple.
I think one of the other topics we had, Barbara, you can help me on this one too, is the software was somewhat new, and actually I think when we looked into it, were there no other places or very few other places that used it for multi-winners? Didn't we look at that? And
in the information I sent yesterday, it outlined who has single winner races, which is most who do ranked choice voting, and some do multi-winner races. I'm not sure exactly how many places that use our machines and the Democracy Suite actually do multi-winner races.
Right. I do know that the Democracy Suite is enabled to handle multi-winner ranked choice elections. I'm also not sure how many municipalities have used it for that, but if we pay the money to license the software to upgrade our voting machines for single winner, that software is able to handle multi-winner.
Right. I think the other topic we had too is, again, this is new software, and if by chance something went wrong, the manual calculation of a multi-winner and moving votes from this person, I think, would be a nightmare. And I know Councilor Conniff had some concern that if we don't address it now, it won't be addressed. And I think I mentioned in the Gazette article is that by law, or by charter, 2020, there is another charter convention, charter review committee. And so this discussion can certainly be ongoing. Councilors?
I just want to ask the mayor a question. put you on.
Well, we have a motion, don't we?
I'm going to ask that the motion, I'm going to withdraw my motion with the caveat that I'm not going to reread it because we already heard it.
Okay. Okay.
Can I have the second be removed as well?
Who was the second? Was it Councilor Gomez?
Mayor, I have to ask you, since this kind of an amendment would require your approval, and given all the discussion about administration and processes and everything, I have to put you on the spot and ask you what you think, because if you don't feel we should do this now, the subject is moot.
I would say, given the conversation in the committee as well as in the council, it would be very difficult, and I would tend not to say no to this because there is public interest. I am, if it should pass, I would like to be very clear on the record, I am worried about the implementation and the cost of it. So.
For multi-winner.
Yeah.
So you would say yes if the council votes yes, but you're very concerned about it?
Very. But.
So it's up to us. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I could have just said that, right?
All right. I wanted to say something else that was brought forward to what you just said about the next Charter Review Committee. Barbara mentioned that they are really looking at this at the state level, and we might get some assistance from the state toward the tenets of ranked choice voting. And other communities, in fact, I think Northampton and Amherst, are looking at it now. I don't know if they're doing multi-winner races, but we'll have a lot more information. And I know that means waiting 4 years before we have multi-winner races in ranked choice voting on the ballot, but I don't think that's too long when you look at how long it takes, how long the city's been in existence and using single races. I can't vote in favor of this if you do decide to do it, Peg, because I want the other ones to get done, and I worry that will really delay it. That's my only reason for, also, we discussed it at length at the committee, and I have to support the committee's decision, but mostly because I want the other ones to get done, and I worry this will delay it. I don't know how long it'll take the attorney to review it. He may want to change language, etc. So I don't know. I just feel like I can't vote in favor of an amendment given the timing, and I'm sorry that's happened. I think if the Charter Review Committee had only one thing on its plate, ranked choice voting, would have got this to us a lot sooner, but that's not what we were tasked. We were tasked with the entire charter.
Yep.
So I apologize for the timing, but that's just the way it is. And how fast the legislature acts is not in my control.
Okay.
You want to do a motion again?
No, I'm waiting on, see, if Peg wants to do the motion to amend, we should do that first and then amend this.
I
It's
will
up to her.
I will tell you that I do not want to put ranked choice voting at risk. So I am comforted by the fact that we will be re-looking at this in another year.
Continuation, yeah.
So for me, that is very helpful. So the only thing I'm then going to amend is if we could just put single winner ranked choice voting in the definition. Where it says ranked choice voting, just put single winner ranked choice voting.
So where it says ranked choice voting,
Right in front, just put single winner. Because that's what that definition is for. If we at some point go forward with multi-winner, it would be multi-winner ranked choice voting.
I just don't think it's necessary, because that way we'd have to take single winner out the next time. Why?
No, you would leave it in. It would be already there, and then we would add a paragraph for multi-winners.
I guess if we end up.
I mean, it's.
I mean, I have to defer to Tom.
It's
Do we need
fine.
it? Do we need it?
I mean, I guess if we're gonna do an entire other like legislative petition on that at some point in the future, we can fix
Address
that
this too.
to address that, or change this ranked choice voting language to specify the different types at that time, if that streamlines this, because otherwise we're gonna have to go back to the first two motions to specify that we mean single winner in those cases.
I give up my reluctantly and with
And you
great
still have your
remorse.
head, though. Okay, Councilor Rist.
I would like to move the motion number 4 for sections 1, 5, and 6 as stated previously.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for motion number 4. Additional questions or comments, Councilor Pete?
There's just two small wording things in this. They shouldn't
yes.
affect anything. One of them is that there's a sentence that appears twice.
which is a ranked choice voting ballot shall not interfere with the voter's ability to rank at least one write-in candidate. That appears in the first paragraph, and then it appears in section 5 as well. So it's just redundant. It's not
But
actually.
those are two different articles, so maybe he's.
Maybe that's fine?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
just
it's
wanted to
fine.
point it
Right,
out. The other thing is in the first thing, it has a sentence where it says, in ranked choice voting, each voter casts a single vote by ranking candidates in order of preference, indicating the voter's first choice, second choice, and so forth until the voter has assigned a single numerical ranking to each candidate on the ballot. I'd just like to include the words, or the voter chooses to stop ranking, because the voter, otherwise somebody who just filled in one ballot, this could be interpreted as making that a spoiled ballot. Does that make sense? Like, if you truly hated every single candidate except for one, you're allowed to rank that one person. But if they get eliminated, your vote gets thrown away. But like that, it's important to me that somebody has they're not forced to do this. This is,
I
it's an
kind of
option.
agree, because that means that vote will not be tossed out.
Yep,
Right?
that
That's what
vote
you're
for that
saying.
first person will be, and if that person,
I would certainly think that the city attorney would agree with that. So why don't you make that amendment? We already have this on the
okay.
floor.
I move that we amend the language blah, blah, blah to include the words, or the voter chooses to stop ranking.
Wait a minute.
Where would that
I
come
think-
in?
I'm not sure if
Yeah, I don't think blah, blah, blah
qualifies here. Sorry, Tom, but that's just a little
All right.
too.
Hey, if I had to read the whole thing, you're gonna have to read the sentence.
I
Stay focused, people.
move that we include the words, or the voter chooses to stop ranking at the end of the second paragraph, or the second sentence of the paragraph titled ranked choice voting.
Can we say what section we're on here?
It's section
If
one.
we do it section 1,
Ranked
the
choice
paragraph
voting.
number, and then
The one starting ranked
section 1.
choice
Okay.
voting.
I hate to ask you to do this, could you read the entire sentence the way
Yes.
you want it to say?
It will now say, in ranked choice voting, each voter casts a single vote by ranking candidates in order of preference, indicating the voter's first choice, second choice, and so forth, until the voter has assigned a numerical ranking to each candidate on the ballot, comma, or the voter chooses to stop ranking.
I second the amendment motion.
Okay, and discussion on the amendment?
I have a question.
Counselor Kozinski.
In reading that sentence again, what if the candidate is not on the ballot? Does that eliminate write-ins, the way this
Not
language is
because
written?
the last sentence
Just
solves
for the
that.
write-in.
See, it says at the
So
bottom.
at the very last sentence.
Sentence,
The ranked choice voting ballot shall-
protects us.
Clearly, you have that right, but just reading the sentence alone,
Right. I mean, I could see how it could be interpreted, but since we explicitly spell it out, I think that removes any ambiguity.
and the attorney's happy with this language, so.
Well, if the attorney's happy with the new language, I think
He wrote it, right?
He wrote it.
Yeah, okay. Good.
If he says,
Presumably, we
no,
should
that
be
doesn't
good.
fly, I'll ask him, okay, then we'll send it as is.
This whole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any
Okay.
more comments on this amendment? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Now we have, so now for the main motion, for motion 4, and more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I would like to say that and I want council approval, when I send this to the city attorney, I will ask him to approve the language. If he doesn't approve the language, we will send the original language to the legislature. In other words, if he says, no, I don't agree with each of these amendments, I doubt that's going to happen, but I want to send it right to the legislature with his, if he says, no, I don't approve this particular one voter, I think, if he says it's confusing, do we want to go back to it and reapprove this, or do I send it right up? I think we send it right
I
up.
don't think we can. I mean, you
I think
can't.
that
vote-
that's, I like the idea of that, but is there a procedural step that would allow us to do that?
Because we're setting something that we haven't voted on. Barb, do you agree? Did you- So Councilor Rich was saying, let's say that the city solicitor doesn't like the amendment, can we just say, okay, we'll just go back and send what we have here, but we never voted on that, so I don't think that's an option, is it?
Well, what I was going to do is put a motion in and says, ask the council if that's okay. In other words, these are minor amendments. So if we approve sending it as is without the minor amendments tonight, then it goes. Otherwise, if we have to have a special meeting and come back. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to think of little roadblocks.
No, I like
you
the
know.
idea, I'm just trying to think about how we, well, I guess it's the president.
Yeah, my concern is that we are then sending something, a wording that we did not vote on. And I think, I would rather call it special election.
All right,
personally.
good. I just wanted to bring it up.
Special meeting.
Special election. Special meeting.
As long as it's the right choice.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll cost $10,000 to approve the work.
Okay.
All right, so we're done. I'd like to move the public hearings be closed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've gone through the agenda for tonight. I think
We didn't, yeah.
Yeah, we did. I moved and you
Mr. President, before
Yeah.
we make a motion to adjourn, I
Yeah.
just want to say, this is something that obviously I am very passionate about and have cared about for a long time. It's something that was in my platform when I ran, and I really want to thank all of my colleagues for bearing with me through this whole process and keeping an open mind, and it really does mean a lot. Thank you all very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Tom.
Council,
Melissa, did you
you have
want to come before us?
I just wanted to, I handed Counselor Lynch a paper on the free cash balance, and it's significantly less than what we had previously said. It was around a little over 700 when we finished the capital plan, and since then we voted on snow and ice, which is what I
All right.
remembered, and I was like, I have to know the number. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw that. So we were about 540-ish, is that what that says? Because I no longer remember. And then we would have to subtract the 269 to
So we're
get.
at around 200 now.
Well, it's on there if you just want to share it. I just wanted to correct my mistake.
before you leave.
Before you leave.
Yes, exactly. No, thank you. Well, you could too. I was going to just say, obviously, we received your resignation letter, and from the council, it's been a joy working with you and your knowledge base, and you'll certainly be missed, and best of luck in your new position.
Thank you.
I would like to say that I've worked with Melissa since she was a city councilor, and her knowledge of city financing was a blessing to us, and although we may have disagreed on occasion, I know that this city is in a more stable financial position because of her tenure, and I thank her very much. Hear, hear.
Thanks, Melissa.
Okay.
Move we adjourn.
72.
Second.
180.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. See you June 5th.